What makes an American citizen? For a long time, it's been a simple question to answer. Someone born or naturalized in the United States. Once someone is a citizen, they're granted the rights, benefits, and responsibilities guaranteed by the Constitution. But now what makes a citizen is becoming much more complicated. Birthright citizenship, long an unchallenged bedrock of American immigration policy, and constitutionally granted, is under legal challenge. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is shifting its focus towards stripping citizenship from undesirables in a process called denaturalization. Welcome to the politics of New America. On the show today, the Trump administration widens its anti-immigration net by attempting to strip citizenship from naturalized immigrants and the children of undocumented immigrants. I'm your host, Nathan Stone, and I'm joined by producer Josh Carmody.
I feel like every time we come back, we're living more and more in the space between Star Wars Episode 1 and, Star Wars Episode 3 and Star Wars Episode 4.
Yeah, I wish one of these times we could start an episode and I'd be like, hey, good news, everyone. Here's a bunch of great things that are happening for you that are going to make your life better. But today we're going to talk about taking citizenship away from children. So, that's not
when we talked about going to the museum. I remember talking about going to the museum.
Wasn't that was good times. Yeah. Well, before we jump into today's majorly depressing topic, so much has happened in the last week.
Yep.
And I feel like we should just take a moment to mention the big, beautiful bill passing. Mm-hmm. So it was in the Senate passed it, and then it went back to the House for final reading, and the House, by the narrowest of margins, passed it as well. The Senate, actually, it came down to the tie break, which almost everyone saw coming. J.D. Vance, as the vice president, cast the tie-breaking vote. So what does this all mean? Because we've all heard a lot about the big, beautiful bill. It's been pretty inescapable because it's a kind of unprecedented way to do legislation. What Republicans have done here is basically put Trump's agenda together in one huge omnibus bill. And omnibus bills aren't unusual, but the size and scope of this one, it's pretty much all of the things he wanted to do this term crammed in one bill. And because of that, so much of the discourse around this bill has been finding things in it that make people stop and gasp or raise the alarm. But we can't really tell the size and scope of these changes overnight like this. And if you're expecting this bill to hit like a bomb going off, it probably won't. What's more likely is this is a slow burn kind of thing. There's a lot of changes here, a lot of things that are going to make American life very different, but they're not written in a way where it's going to come in all at once. We know about the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare eligibility, and millions of people are going to be kicked off that program. We know about the ICE funding increase. You're looking at over $170 billion going to ICE. As we've talked about on this show, enough money to make them the third best funded military in the world.
Yeah, more money than the Marines get. More money than, some countries' entire military. More money than I think Russia spent attacking Ukraine.
Yeah, so Russia, in a war economy, in an active war with their neighbor, is spending less on their military than this budget increase for ICE. The only two nations in the world spending more are, of course, firstly, the United States on its main military force, and China. That's it. Third now is ICE, if you're looking at it as a militarized organization, which I think you could argue. So we know about these things, and we've talked about them on the show, so please go back and listen to those episodes if you haven't. But there's so much in this bill. So much. And that's why we haven't really covered the bill itself on the show, because before this, it was all theory. And now it's just too big, right? We would have to dedicate the podcast to going through it line by line. And I don't want to do that, Josh.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
So
no.
we're going to have to take this as it comes. There's going to be stuff that kind of bubbles up from this that I think we will want to talk about. But for now, I think we kind of, like everyone else, have to digest these changes. And it's going to be really tough for a lot of people. I guess in other news, Elon Musk starting his own political party.
The America Party.
The America Party.
Yeah. So aptly named. Almost like he thought of it in 0.5 seconds. Allegedly.
I don't know why it's not named X. I know that's his thing, and I feel like it should be branding.
He loves naming stuff X.
Yeah.
I mean, he was trying for years to name stuff X. That's why he named Twitter X. There was, I think, PayPal he wanted to name X. Other things he wanted to name X. He's just really into the X factor, I guess. I don't know.
And it's so perfect because on a lot of ballots, what do? You mark an X. This is easy. Branding 101. Elon, call me. So that was a bit of a lighter side news story, or what passes for lighter side this week. But I did want to mention it because I did find it kind of humorous. And I actually think Musk starting a party like this, and I know he is maybe the second least popular person in the United States, but the idea of a challenger right-wing party could be exactly what the Democrats need. If we think back to Clinton, his first term, he got in when Ross Perot split some of the Republican votes.
How so? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is, God, was that the 92 presidential election? I think so.
I thought
Clinton's first term. Maybe
I thought that
93.
was against Bob Dole.
Oh, no, it was. Bob Dole was running for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Ross Perot ran as an independent candidate for
okay.
president. And he was he was right-leaning, and he took a bunch of presidential votes.
Hey, you want to vote for a guy who doesn't refer to himself in the first person? Yeah, I'm your man.
Yeah. So it could honestly be an interesting dynamic. So yeah, I think it is something to keep an eye on. It could be an interesting new dynamic come the next presidential election, but that's like a million years away right now.
It is, yeah. And I fear that it'll be somewhat similar to the here in Canada. I think it's the CCP.
The People's Party.
The People's
PPC.
Party of Canada, the PPC.
Yeah,
the
you're
other
getting your
way.
P's and your C's mixed
yeah.
up. Yeah.
But the People's Party of Canada was kind of a much further right-leaning, very much more Trumpian, and they managed to get some votes, and it did seem to have some small effect, but they've diminishing returns going forward, and I fear it'll probably be something similar to that.
I could easily imagine that. Yeah, I think there's only so much money can buy, as I think Elon found out in his stint in government, and so we'll see how that.
It'll
that
get you an
develops.
election. It'll get you ketamine, a black
Get you a
eye.
lot, a lot of ketamine, and a
Allegedly.
nice shiner. Yeah. So being an American citizen has been, for the past well over 100 years, a fairly desirable state, right? People have come from all over the world to the United States to chase the American dream and to become members of the melting pot, the American experiment. And for a long time, America was very open to immigration. That's how it grew so colossally, so quickly after independence. If you want to go back and look at a map of New York in the early 1800s and just adding block after block after block. It's why it's such a beautiful grid system in New York, is because they were building so fast, because the city was growing by leaps and bounds, and it was such a dynamic place and such a dynamic time.
And even since then has been torn down and rebuilt in large amounts over the years.
Yeah, and so for most of its history, the United States has been, to a greater or lesser degree, very welcoming to immigrants. Now, not necessarily on an individual level, right? Yeah, you always had the systemic racism that played into it, whether you were Irish or Mexican or wherever. And each wave of immigration brought about its own kind of biases and fears. But that never stopped the government from welcoming immigrants, because they knew that that was a big driver of the economy. And since, I want to say, kind of the fallout of 9/11, there has been a real shift in tone about how the country views its immigrant population. And of course, with world migration ramping up, especially from the global south to the global north, it has put a lot of pressure and scared a lot of people. And we've seen a drastic rightward turn in how immigration has been talked about for years, and talk of invasions and everything. And so as part of Trump's second term, and a part of his campaigning leading up to that, we got the mass deportations, the idea that, you know, we remove 12 million people, however million people you want, remove all undocumented people from the United States. And we've seen now, and we've documented on this show, ICE ramping up, the infrastructure of this mass deportation getting built. So today we're talking about two new and kind of terrifying angles of this mass deportation effort, because I guess if you want to say the good thing about what they've done so far is that it's not been targeting people who have American citizenship. But now we are seeing sights set on those who have become naturalized, so naturalized immigrants, and the children of undocumented immigrants who are constitutionally granted citizenship at their birth. So first off, let's talk a little bit about denaturalization, because this is the more current of the two.
Yeah.
So this is a news story you could have missed this week, especially with everything with the big, beautiful bill. But the DOJ, the Department of Justice, came out with a memo saying that they will be focusing their efforts, or refocusing their efforts, toward denaturalization cases. And the idea of this is to take immigrants who have become citizens and have broken some rule or law, strip them of their citizenship, and then treat them as if they are either undocumented, or in whatever way remove them from the United States. So this isn't actually them coming up with any new laws or rewriting things or reinterpreting things. The government has had the power to revoke citizenship since the Immigration and Nationality Act in 1952. And this power has been invoked so rarely that a lot of people don't even know it exists. It's not very common. And it's usually reserved for very extreme cases. For example, Nazis. You found a Nazi. Oh, hey, this person worked at Auschwitz. Oh, no, we can't have that. We're going to strip them of the citizenship and get them out of the country.
Really sensible use of this law, this precedent.
Exactly. No one's going to get upset if you're hunting Nazis, generally. I have to say generally now.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird to have to feel like... Usually people aren't mad about this.
Yeah.
People kind of seem to be a little mad about it.
So for a long time, that was kind of the long and short of denaturalization. It was just not done outside of rare cases. However, Post 9/11, there was an expansion of denaturalization. Both the Bush administration and Obama's administration used denaturalization. They used it selectively, and it was against kind of, again, one people that you don't necessarily think maybe should have gotten citizenship in the first place. So there was a step up in looking for war criminals. So not just Nazis, but Bosnian war offenders also. There was a few of those. Human rights violators. So if you were involved in the Balkans or in maybe the Rwandan genocide, you had a questionable past there. And also cases of deliberate identity fraud. So people using fake names, trying to, become citizens through totally fraudulent means.
Yeah, all reasonable things.
Yeah, and
I would say.
Yeah, from 1990 to about 2017, there was only about 300 denaturalizations, which again is statistically for a country as large as the United States almost nothing. Now, when Trump came in, things started to shift kind of in terms of legally. This is kind of Trump 1 here, broadened denaturalization. And they created a denaturalization section in the criminal code to audit naturalization files for discrepancies. So this was kind of them starting to focus in on it, look at it. And they also started shifting the focus towards administrative errors. So if someone got arrested, but it was like an unreported arrest, it never made its way into the whatever database, they would look at that. Inconsistencies in past applications. So kind of starting to dig into the weeds a little bit. Now, there's what we're seeing now is, again, not a expansion of these powers, but it's a specific way that the Department of Justice is going about this business that is raising a lot of eyebrows. So they are actively reviewing past naturalization cases for discrepancies, including minor errors in paperwork or omissions. They're getting into the nitty-gritty of people's applications and looking at past cases to see if there are any ways to remove citizenship from people, not based on crimes, but based on civil errors, right? Not filing paperwork on time, omissions, kind of the small things. Oh, hey, you're not a Nazi, but you didn't fill out Form 34C in triplicate. And losing your citizenship over something as ridiculous as incomplete or incorrect paperwork is a little wild, considering how rare and important these cases have been in the past where they've used these denaturalization powers. Some of the cases that we're seeing brought up here are people facing denaturalization over old visa application errors. So including stuff like failing to disclose a past traffic violation. And it's turning into kind of almost a gotcha type of system where the DOJ can comb through every record you've ever everything they've got on you, and look for any little minor inconsistency, and from that open a case against you and take you to civil court. Now that's important. You can try these two ways, denaturalization. In criminal court, if they have evidence that you have committed a crime, and that makes sense. And in civil court. And then civil court deals with a lot of these kind of old, application errors, not filling out proper paperwork, failure to disclose minor things. The difference, though, and the thing that is really stark and kind of the important part of their tactic in doing this is that the people that you are going after here, by and large, are poor. They're not high earners. They're recently naturalized U.S. citizens, but they're probably not even making, the average income.
Yeah.
If you try them in criminal court, if you go after them that way, they are legally guaranteed representation by a lawyer. That's part of those fun Miranda rights if you've ever watched Law and Order.
Bum, 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 bum,
Exactly.
bum. I haven't watched Law and Order. I just know the theme song.
You haven't watched Law and Order?
I think I watched like SVU when I was a kid. I don't know if I ever watched like main series Law and Order.
That's just shocking. I'm always shocked when you haven't watched
Criminal
something.
Intent. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I was a CSI kid. Like when I got into
yeah.
cop shows in the 2000s, it was CSI, and then Law and Order SVU, and then I don't think I watched much of like main series Law and Order. I remember like at one point in the 90s, I was like, I was like 9 years old. I was like, I'm in my parents' bedroom. No one knows I'm watching the TV. I'm going to see what this NYPD Blue is all about. And I couldn't give less of a fuck. So I don't think I was excited to watch Law and Order at the time.
No, I don't imagine. It's not one to hold that skitterish childhood like kind of lack of attention. But yeah,
thanks for summing me up there.
But the important thing is that you are guaranteed a lawyer.
Yeah.
In civil court, you are not. And that is a huge difference because most of the people that they are going to go after with this cannot afford lawyers. They cannot afford representation. And when you cannot afford representation, the chances of you winning your case drop like a stone. It's so much easier for them to convict you on this. And civil courts, now for denaturalization, the onus, the burden of proof is still fairly high. But the difference between criminal and civil is quite stark. They need less to convict you in a civil case than they do in a criminal case. And when you put those two things together, it's going to make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone that they bring up on these charges to effectively fight this case unless they do have the means to lawyer up, or maybe there's a someone takes the case pro bono, that kind of thing. But it's a really concerning development, because now if ICE picks you up off the street and you're an American citizen, there's still that chance that you could end up deported, which is absolutely insane.
Helps when none of them identify themselves and get to wear masks.
Yeah.
And now are massively overfunded. I mean, how much did they blow through? 80 billion? 8 billion?
God.
They maybe not
Several
80 billion.
billion.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember the number.
Some lower number. So maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We can math out how quickly they're going to rip through $190 billion. And maybe they'll do it in a year and a half, and then maybe we can fight back after that. But, ugh. And I mean, they're showing up, this maybe isn't quite the same, because they're showing up at courthouses, right? But those are people that are being asked to come to court to... I'm not sure for what. It's for some sort of immigration law, and that's why they know they're going to be there. But people are showing up to do the right thing in court and then getting whisked away.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 if you are someone who is undocumented or just fearful of ICE, because if you follow the rules, you are actually more likely to get picked up, right? We've seen this a bunch of times with them stalking Home Depot parking lots for people looking for work for the day.
Yeah.
And yeah, people going to court, people doing those things that you are obligated to do as a member of society. That's what gets you snatched. But then if you kind of go to ground, if you don't show up at whatever court hearing for whatever reason, it's going to give them more legality to come and try and find you. So it really is a system created to be no win for anyone caught up in it. One of the interesting things about this whole process too is that if this is going to be used on a large scale, this denaturalization tactic, if the DOJ is serious about this, it's going to quickly clog up federal courts, because there's just not that many federal judges. And if you're loading their docket with thousands and thousands of cases where you're trying to strip citizenship, you're going to grind the justice system to a halt pretty quickly.
Do we have any examples of them already bypassing that? Because, I mean, just based on other things they're doing, is that not the intention to bypass the courts? They want to ignore the courts. They've tried in the past. Would that not just be what they want to do?
It might be. It may be a case of they break something, in this case federal courts, and then point and say, look how broken this is.
Yeah.
And we need a way around this.
Which Republicans love doing.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
That's the whole game. That's the game.
That is
and
the
it's
game.
like, oh, look, they have no money to operate. They're not doing anything. I mean, I took their allowance away, but look, I mean, I thought I should. I don't know. Look, it's not working now. Let's not worry about the past. Let's just try to move on and heal. This isn't working. And
yeah. And so we either get that and they try and bypass it. To this point, there isn't really, these cases are working their way through the courts, but there isn't so many of them yet that it's having a noticeable impact. The other thing that they could be doing with this, and this is just a kind of bonus benefit for them, is that this whole policy by the DOJ is going to instill a tremendous amount of fear in naturalized citizens, and especially those from places that have been targeted, by other policies. So Muslim majority, people from Muslim majority countries or Latin American countries. And the idea is that you stop these people from getting politically involved, from protesting, from being effective citizens, because they're living in fear that if they're seen at a protest, or if they're seen in acting in any way against the interests of the administration, they could be targeted by a DOJ investigation, found out, and then God knows what happens to them. So this matters. Even if they don't use it a whole lot, it still matters because it is a direct attack on American citizens. And,
any amount is too much.
Yeah, it
should not be tolerated.
Yeah, it's kind of the first shot across the bow of American citizenship. And that was kind of the one place that they said they weren't going. And now Trump has made some comments about deporting bad people. His words, not mine. Who are citizens from the country.
His words were once we're done with the illegals, we've got a lot of bad people that are here too, a lot of bad citizens, and we're going to send them away as well.
Yeah. And that might be giving away the game. It might just be Trump doing Trump things.
Yeah.
We're going to have to see. It sure as heck looks like they're going in that direction, though.
Well, I mean, and we've brought it up several times, the new funding for ICE should startle everybody. Because, as you said, in the big, beautiful bill, there's kind of things that we won't see active for some time. I think it's not for 2 years that people get kicked off Medicaid, but then that, like, if the Democrats manage to win the House in 2 years in the midterms, who is everybody going to blame?
Yeah.
Like, they kind of they space things out, and they do this intentionally so that someone else catches the blame, because people have goldfish memory when it comes to politics like this, because there's so much going on.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard, even as someone who...
Oh, and the last thing I was going to say, the ICE funding, I think, goes into effect now.
Yes.
So that is something from the bill that we will see in the coming weeks explode.
Absolutely. And it's something we've said on the show before, but it bears repeating. What we have seen so far is but the prelude. It is what they have done to this point, the communities that they have gone after, the people who have disappeared. It was them doing what they could on the existing ICE budget, which was already very large. But it was them working within the constraints of kind of the infrastructure that existed, right? And all they have been doing is building infrastructure and building capacity. And this isn't so much like ICE getting a shot in the arm. This is ICE getting the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
What you have seen is nothing compared to this, right? The budget expansion for ICE is of such a magnitude that it is a if you want to call it a police force or a military force or a paramilitary force, it's going through such a rapid expansion that in 2 years, the number of people getting arrested, getting pulled off the streets every day, it might actually look like some of those Republican wet dreams that, Stephen Miller has about grabbing 3,000 people a day. One of our first episodes, we were talking about this, and I said, ICE cannot do what the Republicans want them to do. For that, you need an army.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they have funded an army.
Yeah. So I can't remember if I said numbers before. I do want to clarify. I looked it up. So the original annual budget for ICE was $8 to $9 billion, and that was something we had talked about on the show before that they had exhausted. And now with the big beautiful bill, there's $45 billion for immigration detention centers and $30 billion to hire ICE personnel and transportation costs and maintain ICE facilities. That is an insane increase in funding.
It's so wild that it's honestly hard to imagine, right? We don't know what ICE looks like soon, because an injection of cash this large does not come outside of like full-scale military mobilization. It really is just without precedent in anywhere that I could figure
They're gonna
out.
make that concentration camp they got down in Florida look like a petting zoo.
Oh, absolutely. This is all kind of scary stuff, and it's important that for now we kind of think about, okay, ICE is this big monster. As far as the Department of Justice goes, however, they have limited capacity. They did not get the super soldier serum. They are not going to be able to go after and prosecute, every naturalized citizen in the United States, and it would be economically calamitous to try and do that. But there is something that the Trump administration can do, which could affect millions of people just like this, and do so in a way that's kind of a push button type of thing. as opposed to trying individual cases. And that is ending birthright citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this came into effect back on Trump's very first day. He signed an executive order protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. Isn't that nice? They give them such nice names, or they give them movie names. It's one of the two. So this executive order is all about removing birthright citizenship going forward. And the reason why the Trump administration wants to do this as part of their larger immigration scheme is that once a child is born in the United States, they immediately become American citizens. And that is constitutionally protected. It also provides their parents with a better way to stay in the country. Now, folks on the right like to call them anchor babies. And to
another one of their fun, offensive terms up
Yeah.
there with welfare queen
Yeah.
and other such nonsense, yes.
Yeah, and the only real truth in that is that it does help the parents with their immigration case. Because you cannot deport, right now, a U.S. citizen because they're a U.S. citizen. Now, the 14th Amendment.
Introducing our next guest, Baron Trump.
Yeah. So the 14th Amendment is pretty clear on this. In Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunity of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or prosperity without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So the first part's a little bit more important there. All persons born or naturalized in the United States. That's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
But apparently it's not. It's not. It's stupid, and I'm stupid for thinking it. But when I was looking at this, I was like, how could you possibly argue this? And so
is it the Supreme Court? Is it the Supreme Court kind of come into play? Because if Futurama taught me anything, it's that we're gonna go somewhere where the Constitution means nothing, and it's the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So there, of course, as soon as this happened, as soon as this executive order started its journey out into the world, it was immediately and forcefully challenged in the courts, which it clearly should have been.
Yeah.
But yes, this does have to do with the Supreme Court, Josh. You are correct.
Slam dunk.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad about it.
So the reason why we're talking about this today is that on June 27th, the Supreme Court came to a decision, but not necessarily regarding this. But it affects it. So
yeah.
The first thing that happened, and that has happened to a lot of Trump's executive orders, especially the more, let's say, eccentric ones, is that a lower court will slap an injunction on it, which is just to say that, okay, we're not ruling on this, but until there is a ruling on this, it has no effect.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what happened to his executive order ending birthright citizenship. Because fun fact about executive orders cannot override the Constitution at the moment. We'll see what the Supreme Court has to say.
Asterisk.
About it. Yeah, God, I need so many asterisks for this show. It makes me sad.
We'll be able to write a book that's just all Cliff Notes eventually.
Yeah, 100%. So they came down. So what happened was the federal government challenged this injunction, and that challenge against the injunction from the lower courts, from the federal courts, made it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court on the 27th ruled on the injunction. And they quashed that injunction, which means that the executive order comes into effect. Now, they gave 30 days for the justice system to kind of figure it out, basically. Now, in that time, they may decide to look at birthright citizenship themselves and come to a final decision. And honestly, it's going to end up there. There's almost no chance that this doesn't end up with them. Now, they did rule 6-3 along straight ideological lines, as they do these days. And so they didn't rule at all on denying birthright citizenship. But they did kill the injunction, which means the timer started now to figure this out. And things are going to get weird if they don't rule on it. But again, that's not likely to happen. So assuming for whatever reason the Supreme Court's just like, nah, we're not going to do this. In 30 days from the 27th, what happens is that children born of undocumented or temporary visa holders would no longer gain U.S. citizenship on birth. So what this in effect does is create stateless children. Yeah. Now, statelessness it's a big problem worldwide. There's actually hundreds of millions of people estimated. The UN doesn't have full-on numbers because stateless are very hard to track. But millions and millions of people around the world do not have a state. And it's not some libertarian wet dream being stateless. It's actually horribly dangerous. It makes you amongst one of the most vulnerable people in the world. And there's a lot of reasons for that. First of which being that our world as it is organized is a world of states. And as having a nationality, having a passport, having a country that says, oh yeah, that's one of ours, is not just beneficial, it's basically required. Mm-hmm. The stateless are often the ones that are most likely to falling into being trafficked, into being abused in some way, right? Modern slavery works a treat on those who are stateless. And a lot of that is because there is no place for them to turn. There's no recourse. There's no consulates. There's no, there's no country that even nominally has your back. Even if your country is shitty, and there's a lot of shitty countries in the world, having some place that is obligated to take you is so valuable when you're in a spot, right? If you have even just the modicum of protection of a passport, of something that says, hey, this is this person of this country. So adding to the stateless population of the world is absolutely nuts. But it also is extremely dangerous now for undocumented women seeking medical care around their pregnancies. We just talked about ICE showing up at courthouses, at Home Depots, mm-hmm. at places where people work, where people are obligated to be. When do we hear the first story of ICE taking a woman and her newborn into custody? And so this is going to have such a profound impact on what kind of care, undocumented pregnant or even temporary visa holder that are pregnant women can seek out that's accessible for them. And for these kids, it's the worst of all worlds, right? At best, you get deported with your family. But these kids, if you're, say you're a migrant from Honduras, and you make the trip, and you give birth in the United States, there's a good chance that you aren't going to be that child isn't going to be a citizen of the United States, isn't going to be a citizen of Honduras, and now it affects the whole family.
Yeah.
Because again, trying to travel when you don't have a state is extraordinarily hard. Everything becomes harder. Paperwork, you're trying to claim asylum, maybe that becomes harder. Everything gets more stacked against you.
The Trump administration has also shown that they're more than happy to deport people to countries they are not from.
Yes.
Not necessarily to like a supermax weirdo prison like Mr. Garcia went to, but sometimes just to an airport in a country you've never been to.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, imagine being deported to, say, South Sudan with a newborn. You don't speak the language. You have no knowledge of the culture. You have no support, no safety nets, probably not any real means or money. And it would just be an absolute nightmare. Not to pick on South Sudan or anything, but that is one of the places that they want to send people.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely terrifying to think of the harm that could befall people coming out of this. Now,
and maybe you're about to get to it. Have they said, so this is about newborns. Have they said anything about, say, you're 16 years old and you were born here to an undocumented? Has any of that come up?
So, yeah, and it ties in with denaturalization. Yeah. The argument basically is that if the parents were undocumented at the time they had this kid, it could still be stripped, right? They are looking retroactively as well as looking at ways to strip the parents, and by stripping the parents, strip the kid, being like, oh no, your citizenship wasn't valid, so this child's citizenship isn't valid.
And I believe there is somewhat of a system in place that is tracking these people, because there has been in previous administrations efforts to kind of bring them into the fold and allow them to live their lives without fear. So there's a system already in place where they have a list of these people.
Yes, yeah. So the good intentions of yesteryear kind of come back to bite you if you tried to get into one of these programs. They might have these lists of folks that they want to go after here, and I'm 100% sure that they do. Now, birthright citizenship has been kind of a thorny issue every now and again in the United States, but the precedent itself comes from. Have you heard of the Dred Scott case?
I have not. No. What was that?
So, Dred Scott was a really interesting kind of case study in American law, and a really interesting person too. So he was a former slave, and he was born back in 1799, and he unsuccessfully sued for his freedom and for his family's freedom. In the case Dred Scott versus Sanford case of 1857, which became known as the Dred Scott decision. And their claim was around that they should be granted freedom because Dred had lived in Illinois and the Wisconsin territory for 4 years where slavery was illegal, and the laws in those jurisdictions basically made slaveholders give up their right to slaves if they stayed for an extended period. But the reason why this comes into citizenship is because the Supreme Court found that neither he nor any person of African ancestry could claim citizenship in the United States. And therefore, Scott could not bring the suit, basically. They said that your suit's no good, despite your argument being fine, if that kind of makes sense. Like, they didn't rule on, like, his argument. They were just saying, like, no, you could never have brought this in the first place because you can't be a United States citizen.
Yeah, one of those technically correct moments, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was awful for him and awful for his family, but it was the impetus behind the 14th Amendment that guaranteed citizenship for those born in the United States, regardless of where they came from or anything.
Yeah.
So that that kind of was the birth of birthright citizenship, and that was in 1868. And it was challenged in 1898 by the United States versus Wong Kim Ark. And in that decision, the Supreme Court affirmed birthright citizenship for children of non-citizens, including undocumented immigrants. So this had been litigated in the past.
Yeah.
But we are trying to relitigate it now. And the arguments of the administration are basically that anyone who is born in the United States but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So remember when we read the 14th Amendment, it was subject to the jurisdiction thereof of the United States. So they are arguing that undocumented people, because they are not, because they don't have legal status in the United States, are technically not subject to the jurisdiction of, and the same with temporary visa holders. And so their whole argument hinges around those words, which, if it sounds like grasping for the flimsiest straws in the world, it kind of is, honestly. Like, this has been ruled on. They have 150 odd years of legal precedent of this contrary interpretation that, no, this just applies to everyone. And usually this is the kind of thing where I'd say this is going to get laughed out of court, but we don't live in that era anymore, right? The Supreme Court is not maybe a reliable source for the Supreme Court, at least as it exists today, is not a reliable source for
a moral compass.
Yeah. So, but looking at this current decision, right? This current implications. So they've killed the injunction. What that does is it doesn't only just affect this one injunction. They have set rules for the lower federal courts that will stop them from putting in place injunctions against other executive orders. So it actually weakens the lower courts' ability to block federal policies nationwide. And it favors executive authority. Remember when I said every executive order gives Trump more powers?
Mm-hmm.
This is taking away one of the final checks on that, basically. Now, long term, this is setting the stage for the battle of birthright citizenship in the United States, which has huge implications for what it means to be an American citizen and what protections you are granted long term by becoming an American citizen, and also, of course, the ongoing immigration policy in the United States. So what we're looking at, I guess, is the courts ultimately, the Supreme Court ultimately, will rule on this, and it will either become kind of another weapon in the administration's pocket for, denying rights and ultimately removing undocumented citizens or undocumented peoples from the United States. Or if they do uphold birthright citizenship, it may be one of the few avenues of protection left for undocumented peoples. And it's funny because we say that, you know, the term anchor baby. If this is one of the few things that holds, the Republicans might actually be making that term more accurate and forcing more people to try and have children as a last resort to keep their lives in the United States safe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are right now. And we're going to have to watch this one. I say that too often. It's one of my crutches is we're going to have to watch this one, but it is worth watching. And yeah, I don't have any good news. I'm sorry, I never have any good news.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it is some rough stuff to talk about, and some of the discourse that you see online from people who are in favor of this seem, you know, almost gleeful about it. And I think that there isn't anything gleeful or prideful about a lack of empathy. Mm-hmm. And if you are a Republican who has listened to this all the way to the end to hear what us pseudo-democrats have to say, I will remind you that on the Statue of Liberty in New York, a place that has received countless immigrants, it says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore." And why give up on empathy now? Because something that I've seen people say is like, well, we're not going to be the world's soup kitchen anymore. Why not? You have all the money in the world.
Actually. Yeah.
You know, like it, and it's not a new thing for governments and rich people to be pitting the other classes against each other. You know, look side to side, don't look up. You know, that's kind of what they want. And, you know, I think it's a shame to give up on empathy, no matter who you are.
Yeah. If you can't have empathy for newborn children, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
It just isn't a good look, maybe. All right.
Yeah.
Let's end this one.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe next week will be a better week. We'll have a whole bunch of positive things to say. Trump will bring in universal basic income. It'll be great.
Yeah.
But until then,
Yeah.
until that shining future, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. And if you are one of the Democrats who are listening, go watch season 7, episode 23 of The Simpsons. It's a pretty good episode on immigration, and you might have a good time with it. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice, and tell all your friends. The Politics of New America is hosted by Nathan Stone and produced by Josh Carmody. You can follow us on Blue Sky at Politics New America.
This has been a Haunted Mouse production. Cut that out.